The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
How do you top your love for your cat? With a cascade of decadent savory gravy over a mouth-watering mousse pâté. Fancy Feast gems. 2 gourmet pâtés in 1 convenient pack. Simply peel and plate to reveal a pyramid shape that makes eating delightful and pamper her with an experience as extraordinary as she is. Turn the everyday into the extraordinary with Fancy Feast gems.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hey y'all, it's Leslie. Welcome back to Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I've been sitting with something for a while now, something I think we don't often say out loud, not to our friends, not to our families, and most times not even to ourselves. It's that moment right after where, you try to set a boundary with someone in your life where the conversation's over, but your mind is still spinning. So you replay every word and you wonder if you sounded harsh. You wonder if you should have softened it a little or where you should have explained it differently or maybe not have said it at all. And here's the part that kind of sucks. You wanted that boundary to bring you peace, but instead it left you feeling unsettled. And instead of closing the loop, it opened another one in your head, adding to the mental load you already carry. Now, has that ever happened to you? Like, have you ever experienced a moment of decision where you wished you could set a boundary and walk away steady inside without the guilt, without the backpedaling, without carrying the weight of the other person's reaction long after the words have left your mouth, only to find yourself replaying the whole thing in your head and wondering if you did the right thing? Or have you ever said no to taking on one more thing, like a project, or staying late for a meeting, or rearranging your schedule for somebody else, only to find yourself immediately trying to smooth things over because the no felt uncomfortable and you found yourself adding extra words to make sure that they weren't upset, that their feelings weren't hurt, and that it was okay by them that you set the boundary in the first place, while you're actually the one left feeling drained, heavy, and questioning yourself. Boundaries aren't about managing them, not managing your partner or your family or clients or your team. They've always been about you, about whether you'll honor your peace, about whether you'll honor your clarity and taking into account the importance of your time and energy, or whether you'll trade them away to keep everyone else comfortable. And that's what I want to dive into today. So think of it like this. Imagine you've just said no to something small, maybe staying late for a meeting because it's only like a few minutes later, or taking a supposed to be quick call to go over tomorrow's agenda on a presentation, even though you feel it's already good enough, or rearranging your schedule for somebody else. In the moment, you know it's the right call to say no. It's how you feel. But afterwards, when you do say no, your mind won't let it go. So you start replaying the words, wondering if you came across as harsh, or if you should have softened it a little to make your no less disagreeable, or if you should have said yes just to keep the peace, because deep down, part of you is still tying your worth to how easy you are for others, how agreeable you appear, or whether people still see you as dependable. And before you know it, you're backpedaling. You're sending a follow-up text, adding extra words in to make sure that they get what you're trying to say, and that you're trying to make sure that the other person isn't upset with you, isn't upset with your decision. And here's the part we don't often think about. you're the one carrying the weight of it, right? Because that decision you made to say no so that you could protect your time for something else that was important to you, or to protect your energy because you knew you needed downtime and you knew deep down that one more thing would have burnt you out. Somehow that no you said that was meant to protect your peace somehow ends up draining it instead. And I know this pattern all too well because I've done it too. I've set boundaries that I knew were right for me only to find myself over-explaining them, that left me feeling small, like I had to prove why I deserved to decide what I needed. And what I realized later is that the unease wasn't about them at all. It was about me, not fully trusting my own voice in that moment. And I'll tell you this, one of the hardest shifts for me was learning how to say not right now. For years, especially with my family, I would stop everything. I would drop everything to do whatever was asked. And truth, it just felt easier to just give in than to risk disappointing them, or to have conflict, or have to explain myself. But what I've learned is that not right now is still a no. And it's one that protects both my energy and my relationships. And it's okay for me to decide that not right now means not right now without explanation. Because when I give myself permission to pause instead of automatically jumping in, I've found myself showing up in my day-to-day life as the best, most energized version of myself. And so for today's episode, we're diving into the truth about boundaries, why they feel so hard to set, why they don't often stick, and what it actually looks like when they protect your peace instead of draining it. First, I want to talk about the false belief that boundaries are about keeping other people in check, when really they're not about other people at all. Then we'll get into the real cost of misaligned yes decisions, the hidden ways they can drain your energy, scatter your clarity, and leave you carrying weight that was never yours to hold. And finally, we'll talk about the alignment shift, seeing boundaries as energy protection, not barriers, so that every no you give, or not right now, creates space for a stronger, more aligned yes. Because it's not really about saying no, right? It's more about saying yes better to yourself, to your priorities, to be in alignment with what your goals are, your vision for your life, protecting your time and your energy so that you can show up the best version of yourself. So by the end of this episode, my hope is that you walk away not just with a clearer picture of what boundaries really are, but with the confidence to set them in a way that protects your peace and preserves the energy you need to live and lead with clarity. Now, before we get into today's 3 points, I want to pause here because this is where so many of us get tangled up. When you think about boundaries, what comes to mind? I know for a lot of us, it's this picture of a line in the sand, right? A kind of invisible fence you put up to keep your decision safe. And a lot of time to keep people out, to keep them from crossing into your space, crossing that line, or to control how they interact with you. And if you're being honest, maybe that's why boundaries feel so uncomfortable for you in the first place. Because when you imagine them that way, it feels like you're shutting people out, or worse, like you're being difficult, rigid, or unkind. I can't tell you how many times I've actually heard someone say something like, I don't want to come across as cold, or I don't want people to think I'm hard to work with, or even I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And that's the belief most of us have carried for years, right? That boundaries are about keeping other people in check, about controlling their behavior. But here's the thing. When you carry that belief, every boundary feels like a confrontation. Every no feels like a risk, right? And every time you try to hold yourself to your decision, you second guess whether you're pushing people away, whether it's the right decision. So here's what I want you to understand. Boundaries were never meant to be about control. They're not about forcing others to stay in line. They're about you declaring how you will show up, about you protecting the energy you want to bring into your day, into your relationships, and into your work. And that's where the shift can happen. Because once you see the difference between boundaries and barriers, everything changes. Look at it this way. Barriers shut people out, right? That's what they're designed to do. But they're usually built from fear, or from self-protection, or from the belief that the only way to feel safe is to keep others at a distance. Boundaries, on the other hand, define your yes energy. They're built from clarity, from self-trust, and from the decision to show up in alignment with who you are, what you need, how you feel, and what matters most to you. And once you understand the difference, The potential for peace, confidence, and freedom in how you move through your life is everything, right? It becomes doable, more relaxing, more joyful. Now, here's where things can get even trickier. And honestly, this is the part most of us don't see until we're already feeling the weight of it. It's not just that boundaries feel uncomfortable to set. It's that when they're misaligned or when we don't hold them at all, the cost quietly stacks up in ways we don't even realize until we're lying awake at night or snapping at the people we love. And when I say misaligned, I mean those times when we say yes out of guilt or fear or obligation, or we set something that feels more like a wall than a healthy boundary, something that doesn't actually protect our time and energy, but instead leaves us feeling even more drained and disconnected even. Think about it this way. Without clear boundaries, every single request that comes your way can feel like a negotiation in your head. Should I say yes? Should I say no? What will they think if I turn this down? Am I being selfish? That mental back and forth is exhausting before you even give your answer. And when your brain is stuck in that loop, it drains your energy long before you even acted on the decision. And then there's the way those blurred boundaries chip away at your energy, where you give your best focus, your best creativity, your best emotional presence to things that weren't actually priorities for you. Maybe it's a client call that runs 20 minutes over and it disrupts the rest of your day because it's the last call of your day. And instead of shutting your laptop off because now you're in work mode, you then find yourself checking back into your email to see if there's anything else that you need to wrap up, any fires to put out before you shut down. And you carry that urgency into your evening, which is meant for reset, rest, recharging, connection, and, and connecting with your loved ones. Or maybe it's agreeing to that extra project you didn't really have the mental capacity for, nor the available time to take on. Maybe telling yourself it's just this once, but deep down, you know that you've stepped out of alignment. You get it done, but the whole time you're carrying that low-grade resentment, not just toward the person that asked, but also towards yourself for not saying no in the first place, or not right now, for not protecting your time, your energy, and your peace of mind. And here's one of the hardest parts of saying yes, when deep down you know you meant to say no. Those misaligned yes decisions don't just drain your time and your energy. They affect your relationships as well. Because when you say yes, but your heart's not in it, you're not fully present. You're in the room, but you're not really there. And maybe you're snapping at your partner after a long day because you've given away your margin to everyone else. Your margin for resting, reset, to taking care of you. Or maybe you're distracted with your kids because your brain's still circling that commitment that you wish you hadn't made. And over time, that erodes trust, not just their trust in you, but your trust in yourself. And here's a hard truth to swallow. The cost of a misaligned yes isn't about the other person's ask. It's not about the project or the phone call or the favor. The real cost is the energy you give away because you didn't protect yourself first. And that's a piece most of us miss until we realize we're running on empty and wondering why. So here's how you pivot. After you've wrestled with all that second guessing and carried the cost of those misaligned yeses, it's easy to think the answer is to just draw harder lines, right? Mistaking barriers as boundaries again. Putting up a boundary thinking that it's a boundary, but it's actually a barrier. It's a line in the sand. Don't cross this line, right? Or maybe to get tougher, forcing yourself to say no in a way that feels harsh or defensive, so that you come across stern and so that people understand that you mean what you're saying. But it's coming at the cost of who you are. It doesn't feel right. Even when that's not how you want to show up, right? Or to put up stronger walls even, to protect yourself. Again, thinking you're putting in a boundary, but instead it's a barrier. And maybe you've even tried that, meaning you've tried telling yourself, that's it, I'm done, no more. But if you've noticed, that kind of hard stance rarely lasts, right? Because it's rooted in defense, not clarity. And deep down, you don't want to live with walls around you. You don't want to feel closed off or like you're constantly guarding yourself from people you care about. Because when it comes to healthy relationships, it's never been about building walls. It's never been about the line in the sand. It's about finding a way to say no so that your yeses are stronger, cleaner, and aligned so that you can protect your time and energy and show up as the best version of yourself. And this is where so many of us get stuck. We think our only choices are to either say yes all the time and drain ourselves so that we don't rock the boat, so that we're always seen as agreeable, so that we don't have to have conflict explaining ourselves, or to put up barriers and calling them boundaries when really barriers, again, are about distance, not connection. They're meant to keep people at arm's length, right? And deep down, that's not what you want. But what if healthy boundaries weren't about shutting people out at all? What if they were about keeping you grounded, clear, and steady so that the yeses that you do give come from alignment rather than guilt, fear, or obligation, and so that your relationships stay strong, that you nurture them because you're coming from it from a different lens? Because that's the real shift, right? Boundaries aren't barriers. They're not meant to be. Boundaries are for time and energy protection. They're about you. They're the filter that makes sure that your yes energy goes to the right things that actually matter to you, not to the things that slowly erode your peace. And when you start to see boundaries that way, everything changes because then they stop being about guilt or conflict and they start being about clarity, focus, and even connection. They stop being about controlling someone else's response and they start being about what you need, how you think and feel, and how you want to show up in the things you say yes to. And yes, boundaries are about connection because they teach respect, trust, and mutual care so that your relationships grow healthier instead of heavier. And that's when you begin to realize that every time you set a boundary, you're not taking something away from someone else. You're giving something back to yourself, back to your peace, your emotional and energetic bandwidth, your confidence, your trust in your decisions. And so with that in mind, let's put some simple, clear language to it so you can try this in your next conversation or email or text message without apology, without over-explaining yourself, and without guilt. So before you decide what you need and the boundary you want to set, here's a way for you to do a quick self-check. Where do you most often trade your peace or your energy to keep the moment comfortable? Maybe it's saying yes to hosting a family dinner. For example, someone's asked you like, hey, can you host this Sunday's family dinner? Even when you know you're exhausted and you're like, oh, I wanted this weekend to really kind of recharge because I've been really burning the candle at both ends. But you don't say no because you don't want someone else to feel disappointed, right? So you say yes out of obligation. What truth about what you need have you been keeping quiet? And what would shift if you gave it words? Like, for example, maybe you've been wanting to say, I can't take on extra clients right now, but you keep quiet because you don't want to let anyone down. So you say yes. What's the emotional cost of not protecting your clarity or your space? Every time, for example, you silence that need, it creates an energy leak. Your resentment can build and it can feel like a small act of self-betrayal. And finally, how do you want to feel when you communicate it? Imagine saying what you need in a way that feels calm, clear, neutral, firm, even loving, without the guilt that usually follows. And once you've done that quick self-check, the next question is, how do you actually put it into words? This is where most of us freeze up because the right words don't always come easily in the moment, right? Like, so that's for me, that's been an experience for me where after I've had a conversation and I think about it, then I start thinking, oh, I wish I could have, this had come to my mind. I could have said this in the moment because this is really how I feel. That's why I want to give you a few simple say it as is scripts that you can lean on. Think of them as training wheels until your own words flow naturally. They can help you protect your peace without apology, over-explaining, or guilt. So, for example, let's say a friend invites you to a weekend getaway, but you know you need downtime to recharge because you've just had a week, right? So when you're declining in that invite, you could say something like, thanks so much for thinking of me. I'm really not available this time, but keep me in mind for another time. Or let's say you get an invite to collaborate on a project with a friend that sounds like fun, but you know that saying yes would stretch your bandwidth, both emotionally and energetically, and pull you away from the priorities that you've already committed to. You could say something like, I'm being intentional about what I say yes to right now because I've committed to XYZ, whatever that is. So I won't be able to say yes to this opportunity right now, but I'm truly grateful that you thought of me and I wish you so much success on your project. But if it is something you would like to do, but the timing isn't right, ask if it can be visited at a later date so that you could participate, right? So it's that it becomes a not right now moment, and maybe you can negotiate a later time that is in alignment for both of you. Or how about when it comes to protecting your time and your energy? Let's say a work colleague asks if you can join an impromptu brainstorming call, but you're already maxed out for the day. What you might say is, right now I'm preserving my energy for the priorities I'm already committed to, so I'll have to pass on this. Or I'm pausing new commitments to stay grounded in my highest priority focus. And even great opportunities are a no for me this week. But let's revisit it at a later time if that works for you, right? You are not shutting them out. You're just saying, I need to protect me. You are honoring yourself. When you're reinforcing a previously set expectation because you've already said no, but they're revisiting it and they're saying, "Are you sure?" You could say something like, "As a reminder, like I said, I won't be available during that time as we discussed. If something does change, however, I will let you know. But for now, the plan stays the same." Or circling back, you could say, "I'm not able to," whatever that request is, because we've already covered this, "but I trust that you will find a great solution. I know that." Or you could say, "I'm honoring the rhythm I've set for my time and energy. That's what's helping me stay grounded and fully present right now. I need to do this because I have these priorities that I put in place and I need to protect my time and energy." Now, another area you might consider is when you feel like you need to stand up for yourself in a situation where someone's tone is disrespectful. And that can happen often, right? We can shut ourselves down because we don't feel comfortable. Some people don't, they feel like they're being confrontational. But when you are wanting to be respected and someone's talking to you in a way that is not respectful, you can, instead of saying something like, "Don't talk to me like that," you could say, "I don't engage in conversations where I'm being spoken to that way. However, I'm open to continuing our conversation when we can speak respectfully." And finally, a gentle boundary that keeps connection open is like the not right now moment, right? For example, a family example. Someone asks you for something to help them with that day, or maybe it's in the morning and you're not available until later in the day. You can say, "Listen, I'm not available to help with this right now. If it still needs support later today or maybe later this week, let's revisit it. But right now, this is my priority focus." Listen, they are going to want you to respect their boundaries and what they think, the things that they want and need, and it should be reciprocated, right? So use any of these as a starting point and just allow them to flow naturally how you would sound, right? You don't have to use these word for word, but these are just some starting points that I wanted to give you some examples. The goal really is simple. Clear words that protect your peace and your energy is vital so that every no that you give helps to create space for a stronger and more aligned yes. Because you want to be able to, again, if it's no or not right now, you want to be able to protect yourself, your space, because again, they're going to do the same for themselves. And so it should be reciprocated. And it's going to help to create more respect within the relationship dynamic. Now, it's not always going to happen. I can say, truth be told, you might actually have to keep repeating the process over and over with certain people in your life because they haven't quite gotten it yet. But over time, it can happen. It can happen where they start to realize, oh, okay, they start to actually do the same thing in their life and they realize, oh, it could click, right? And you might even have a conversation around it as well. If you feel confident enough to bring it up and say, "This is why I'm doing this, because I feel like we need to have some, you know, structure in place around our relationship when it comes to specific types of things so that we both take care of ourselves," right? Making it about the both of you, not just about you. And as you try on these scripts and begin practicing what it feels like to say no without apology, I want you to notice something, because the real goal isn't just having the right words. It's about what those words make possible for you, because underneath all of this is a deeper desire. And this is what I want you to lean into. What you really want isn't just to say no when it fits the response, right? If you're being honest with yourself, It's not about putting up walls or pretending you're fine on the outside when inside you're carrying conflict and guilt. What you want ultimately is so much simpler and at the same time, so much more powerful. You want to be able to hold your ground without feeling like you've done something wrong. Because, right, you don't want to be able to think, oh my gosh, saying no, and now I've done something wrong. You want to be able to actually say no confidently without carrying guilt for hours or days afterwards. You want to be able to stop piling on those extra words to justify your decision as if your clarity isn't enough on its own. And you want to be able to say what you mean and mean what you say without feeling like you need permission. Because let's be honest, what's the point of putting safeguards around your peace if they still leave you feeling drained, resentful, or disconnected, or betraying your own needs? That's not the life you're building. That's not the life you crave. As humans, what we really crave is a way to protect our peace without losing our relationships in the process, right? With building and nurturing those relationships, but not at the expense of ourselves. You want to feel steady inside even when you have to make decisions that others may not love. And to be able to show up in your partnerships and your business and with your family, not half present and exhausted, but with clarity, with joy, and with space to breathe. And here's a reframe I want you to hold on to. Protecting your peace is what actually protects your relationships. Because when you're not weighed down by resentment or quietly feeling burnt out, you get to show up as the version of you that the people in your life love most, the one who's calm, present, and fully there. So I want to bring this closer to home. Think about the moments when you've had to hold your ground, whether it was saying no to an extra request, choosing rest over another commitment, or voicing a need that felt uncomfortable to say out loud. Those moments carry weight, don't they? Sometimes they leave you feeling clear and steady, but other times they might leave you questioning yourself, replaying the conversations in your head, wondering if you said too much or if you should have said nothing at all. Maybe even wondering how they feel, how your decision affected them, and all the while forgetting about how important it is that you also ask yourself how you feel and how your decision affects you. So let me leave you with this. If you've been noticing that you're spending way too much energy on over-explaining, backpedaling, or replaying conversations in your head instead of standing firm and confident in your decisions, and you're ready for a different way, a way that lets you protect your peace without guilt and show up steady in every part of your life, this is exactly the work we do inside the Aligned Self-Mastery Experience. It's about self-acceptance, resilience, and energy mastery in aligned relationships so that you can trust your decisions fully, protect your time and energy with confidence, and create relationships that reflect back the love and support you actually want. And I've opened up this program for 10 women. The reason the invitation is capped at 10 is to ensure that each woman gets the depth of support she deserves. The way in is through a Yes Reset strategy call, and on that call, we'll uncover where misaligned yeses are costing you more than they give, and map out how to create the filter that keeps you steady, clear, and protected. And if it feels like the right next step, we'll explore whether one of those 10 spots is meant for you and something that you want to explore. So the link is in the show notes to apply for your call. So as we wrap up today, here's what I want you to carry into this week. Protecting your peace has never been about managing other people. It's always been about you. About trusting yourself enough to make your needs part of the equation. Every decision you make, every yes you give should include you, and you don't have to justify or explain why. Your needs are valid simply because they're yours. When you factor yourself in first, your choices aren't just clear, they're healthier, and they give you back the energy and presence to live the life you're building. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time.
Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
guys, it's your girl Yasia. I want to share some really exciting news with you. I just dropped my first ever single, Spell on You, off my upcoming debut EP, Devil's Room, on RM Records. It's simply devilicious. Check out Spell on You wherever you listen to music. Bye for now.
I never thought I'd fall in love like this. It's time to close the chapter, but I think I needed this.
You deserve better healthcare, and so do we all. Medicine in America is a podcast that shares real stories of patients and doctors reshaping the future, because the revolution in care isn't coming, it's already here. Real stories, real change, a better future for healthcare.
Electric acid.